Okay, gain seekers, welcome to another episode of Client Cast. And today's episode is something that I've really, truly been looking forward to. You know, a lot of people have seen Jo's journey and her transformation, which is incredible. You know, losing over 40 pounds plus, right, on her journey, getting into the shape of her life, right? And that alone is an accolade. Whenever you see, somebody turn their life around like that, turn their shape around like that, it's always something to be revered and like it's an accolade to achieve. But really, if I'm being honest with you, it's just the tip of the iceberg for what Jo's journey been about. Jo's journey has been such an incredible actual journey and ongoing journey that I find it incredibly inspiring. Like as a human being, I find it incredibly inspiring. So I want to share that with you guys and give you an insight here into Jo, her transformation, and what her life really is. You know, and I think everyone will agree with me by the end of this, they'll be very inspired. So firstly, Jo, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. And just really I'm excited to do this. I mean, this is the first time I think that you've ever going to have spoken about your actual journey, right? And like what it is that you really go through for people to get a real insight.
Yeah, yeah. I think obviously anybody that follows me, I post a fair amount about my conditions, but the actual nitty gritty and the everyday um, life that I have is quite different and variable. And I think that's what people don't understand because I look reasonably healthy, and I think that's where people struggle to sort of deal with that I'm ill, and just how ill I can be on some days.
Yeah, I mean the thing about it is, Jo, you're absolutely right. So me looking at you here right now, you look radiant. You know, you look like a woman who's in great shape, takes care of herself, is obviously living a fit, active lifestyle. And so you wouldn't think, glaringly that you're going for anything abnormal or anything that has, that is going to be such a hurdle. But why don't you like give us an insight
So,
into
so,
actually your conditions and what it is that you are dealing with?
so, for example, you saying that I look sort of radiant at the moment. If you could see, my legs currently are like this. They're both spasming non-stop at the moment.
Oh, goodness.
Um, the one of the with having with having MS, sometimes my speech when I'm tired can be a little bit funny. And head
Yeah.
fog is a big thing, so I'll slip up when I talk quite a lot. Um, so that's what I mean when I sort of say people don't understand when they see me as the outside, they don't see literally what's going on underneath. But I was diagnosed with MS, 21 years ago. Yeah, 21 years ago.
Well,
I was just before I was 25. Um, and yeah, it was a long time ago. So basically, when you were diagnosed, it was, I wouldn't say a death sentence, but it was, this is what your life is going to be. And I was told, I had remitting relapse in MS, so I have good days, bad days. Um,
yeah.
and it's literally a condition that the minute I wake up, I don't know what my day will hold, from fatigue, pain. I'm partially sighted in my left eye, which a lot of people don't know. It's not something I tell a lot of people about. Um, so yeah, it's a bit like a pick a mix every morning that you don't have the choice over. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. Um, and I, to a to a certain degree, I try and control it, but ultimately, it's not called the MS monster for anything. And when it decides it wants to fuck up, it will do it, and there's not a lot I can do about it apart from go with it and hope that I come out of the relapse the same way as I went in, which again is not always a guarantee of what it's going to be. So yeah, it's a tough one to live with.
Yeah, that is just a hell of a lot. I mean, because what it really is that every single day you're actively in a battle with your body, right? And you don't know what's going to happen, and it can happen at any sort of time. So, when I think about spending over 2 decades with this condition and knowing that, you know, like you said, you can't get control over it. That's out of the question. It's more just being able to work with it, right? And hoping that each episode that occurs and every battle that you're going through, you know, doesn't lead to a worse pass, right? So it's a hell of a lot. Over 2 decades, I mean, in the beginning, that must have had a massive mental effect on you. Or was
Yeah,
it the
because
opposite? In the beginning, were you looking to fight it? Because I can imagine being told that as a young person and that knowing that it's basically irreversible, like you've got this condition now, and basically your body, you don't know what it's going to throw at you each day, like, but you're going to be battling from there's no days off sort of thing. I mean, where were you mentally?
so when I was first ill, I'd actually been out drinking the
Mm.
weekend, which was quite normal for me. I'd gone to work the next day, and my legs had gone numb from like the knees down, and I just thought way too many tequilas, too much dancing. Didn't really think anything of it, and by the Monday, the numbness that I was feeling in my legs had risen to my thighs, and I thought, oh,
Oh
I don't
God.
know, this is a little bit different. I had a horse riding accident when I was 14, and I fractured my lower spine, upper spine, um, broke huge amounts of ribs, did quite a lot of damage, and the hospital to start with thought it was possibly a sort of nerve reaction, and it was down to that. I
Yeah.
then spent 5 days in hospital, having brain scans, lumbar punctures, x-rays, blood tests, you name it. I was the sort of human guinea pig for a week. And they never really said anything. They basically said they thought I had some sort of virus. And it was quite funny because the lady in the bed next to me, who I'm still friends with now, said to me then, "You've got MS." Because that's how it
Mm.
started for me. And I thought, no, I didn't really know anybody that had MS, and anybody that I did know that had MS was in a wheelchair. So I was like, no, that's not going to be me. I then got let out of hospital. I spent 6 weeks in hospital. They then let me out. And the first time they sent me home, I had, they think it was to do with the lumbar puncture. The pressure in my spine went, and I had a headache to the point where my ears were bleeding.
Oh,
My
goodness.
the level in my spinal cord from the lumbar puncture had not been regulated and sorted out properly. So I then got rushed back into hospital. They sorted that out with steroids and Red Bull. Um, and then I came back out of hospital again, and I think I was out for about 2 weeks, and I had just a really weird sort of day, and I lost my vision completely.
Oh
Um,
my goodness.
so
That is
it was,
so much to go through.
yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. So I then went back into hospital, had the scans, the eye specialist, then got put back on steroids again. But this time they gave them intravenously, and it seemed to clear up. And that was sort of before the Christmas. On the 16th of January, so this all started in the October time. So the January, I went to see my consultant and didn't really have any expectations, if I'm honest. I thought it was just going to be, you've had a virus, off you go, get on with your life. And he was very cold and said, well, we've had your brain scans. You've now had 2 positive brain scans with lesions on your brain. And I had 5 lesions on my brain at that time.
Wow.
And you've got MS. Here's a leaflet. There's the door, and the MS nurse will contact you in the next few weeks. And that was literally it. I walked out of the hospital numb, really, just sort of didn't know
You
what to
must have
do.
felt you must have felt in a really surreal position because you know you got to think that first of all you had months where all of a sudden you out of nowhere you're going through all these sort of physical issues where you're spending a lot of time in hospital getting a lot of tests done and you're right even now Joe like this is why this podcast for me is just such a powerful thing to show people because even now, the understanding of MS is so little.
mm,
There's so little support for it. There's so little understanding of it. If you ask 10 people, let's say in the street, do you know what MS is? Not a lot of them confidently are going to be able to give an answer, right? Of an understanding of what it is. So you're going through something that's completely foreign to you. You've been diagnosed with this, been given a pamphlet, right? Which is just like there is no support. Let's be real, right? It's just kind of, oh yeah, we've diagnosed this. Can't, like, next person, please, right? Fucking hell, man. Your world must have been, you must have felt like so disconnected from reality at that point.
yeah,
Surely.
it was a weird one because obviously my family situation is a bit bizarre as well. So it was a weird one to have to deal with on my own. Um,
Yeah.
and obviously at the time my mum was with me, but it was the sort of wait in between being diagnosed, and I was still using a wheelchair. I was still using crutches. I still hadn't been able to go back to work, so it sort of explained why I wasn't getting any better. Um, and then it was the realization that you then do the Google bit where you then think, I actually don't know anything about this. They gave me the MS website to look at, and that scared the shit. I'll be quite on. That scared the shit out of me because it was all doom and gloom. Um, how I wouldn't be able. It was all I couldn't do this. You won't be able to do this. You'll have to give up. You'll have to give up. And it was like nearly, just turned 25 years old, and they were saying I won't be able to work. I'll be in a wheelchair within 5 to 10 years. Don't, I won't be able to have children. Basically, I wouldn't be able to do anything. And when you start Googling it as well and look at what there was out there then, nobody 20 years ago was doing any form of exercise. It was you either do drug therapy or you just live with how you've got. Um, and probably after about 5 or 6 weeks, the realization that I wasn't going to get back to work. And if I was going to get back to work, I would never be able to do the same job that I did, which was at the time I worked for an animal feed company. I drove horse boxes. Because of the MS, I lost my HGV license, which I've always been a massive fan of driving lorries. So they took my license away. And it got to the point where I couldn't cope. And 6 weeks after my diagnosis, I was standing on the top of a huge bridge contemplating, do I dive first or do I jump feet first?
It's ridiculous. It's crazy
And
because you're in
yeah,
an absolute abyss of darkness because you know what it is that first of all, you're going through a whole life change, literally, physically, mentally, emotionally. Then that your reality has been turned upside down, like the job that you love, you can't do no more. Right. Then you've got the realization, it's very difficult when you've got medical professionals, let's say, right, literally telling you your future and telling you that, well, this is the way your life's going to go, unfortunately. Like, you're not going to be able to have kids, right? You're going to be wheelchair bound, right? You're not going to be able to do X, Y, Z. It's a lot to process. And it's really easy to feel incredibly lonely and hopeless in that position. Now, obviously, I'm fucking glad that you didn't take action that day. But I mean, I have to ask you, what stopped you? Like, what was the thing that, like, what was it?
it was my horse. It was as simple as that. It wasn't really my family. I've always been a bit of a black sheep and a bit of a loner in my family. So for me, my horses were my everything. And at the time, I had what turned out to be the horse of a lifetime. And without him, I probably would have jumped, to be fair. Um, and I remember standing, it was funny because I remember standing, even driving over that bridge now, which I have to do to take the kids to the beach. Um, I know exactly that point where I parked my car, where I stood. And while I was there, I saw my dad's car go the other way.
Yeah.
And I to this day don't know whether he saw me. I don't know, but because he had a personalised number plate, so I knew it was him. And I saw him disappearing and thought, do you know what? The only thing I've got is that horse, and the only thing that horse has got is me. And I didn't want to be without him. And that's what, by that time, the police had already appeared at the bottom of the Orwell Bridge, obviously trying to work out what they were going to do with me. But by that time, I was walking back towards them. Unfortunately, I have revisited the bridge on a few more times, but it's a weird one. I hate what MS has done to me and what it's given me and what it's taken from me.
Yeah.
And that's really tough.
Of course it's tough. Of course your life has been always affected, and that's what I'm trying to process here, and what I'm trying to understand, like, is that you are a young woman who's just literally going out, enjoying a few drinks, enjoying a party, dancing away, then everything takes a violent turn. This is not a storybook. This is not a movie. This is somebody's real life, right? And I can imagine how, a lot of people, I think when people talk about suicide and things like this, right, I think it gets stigmatized. I think it's almost like people think and shun it away. It's a bad thing to talk about. But I think it's a very real thing to talk about. And I think a lot of the time people don't necessarily want things to end. It's just that they don't want the way things are going to continue. Right. And when you're stuck and you really can't see a way out, and you're young, you don't have that experience of life, right? You haven't really got let's say, a work ethic or mentality you can plug into because you've not experienced or gone against anything like this before, right? Very easy to want to end it. But I always say this, that animals are angels in our lives, because the relationship we have with an animal is always pure. It's unconditional love. And it's incredible actually that, as tough as it is, and as many times you've felt like you've been put with your back against a wall into a black hole, literally, off where you can't see no way out. So it's kind of like you just want to turn off almost, right? What a testament it is to how far you've come, which is what we're going to kind of get into now. So we've seen where you began from, and during that time, obviously your physical body, we turn emotional when we go through these things. And one of the most comforting things that you can do is like eat and stuff like that, and not take care and not be so active and healthy, right? And how you actually went through that transition and then come out to where you are now. Like, where you are now is incredible. It's actually incredible. And I want to
I
bring
think
up a picture real quickly.
that's
Sorry.
where, when I like, the MS has taken so much from me, but
Yeah.
weirdly, I honestly don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing now or be where I am now without it. So in one part, I hate it and it upsets me, and my kids have to deal with it. But I'm weirdly grateful because it's given me a fight that I don't think I had in me before my diagnosis. And it's, I was hugely overweight for most of my childhood. And I think that would have carried on, but because of the MS, I knew that I needed, through my own research over the years, that I needed to lose the weight, I needed to get healthier, and repetitive neurosignals is what helps overcome the MS. So yeah, it's one of those yin and yangs, MS. I think it's a good and a bad, but as long as I can go the good route a lot more, then I'm all right.
No, I completely agree, and this is what I love about working with you. It's what I love about having the opportunity to have a window into you, and because every person's their own story, right? And I have the fortune that I work with so many people that I get to really witness incredible stories. And your story is one of the most incredible that I've ever been involved in, because you know what it is that I'll be real here. A lot of people, could be in a situation and really quit on themselves and give up, and they've got the excuses there. Like, if we're honest with each other, all the excuses that you could ever hope for are there. You know what? My body's working against me. Do you know what? There's never an easy day. Every day I've got to go through pain. Every single day I've got to go through uncertainty. right? The doctors have already told me this is what my life's going to be, right? You've got every reason there to plug into to stop you from doing things. But a human being can go either one or two ways, right? First thing, when you're completely overwhelmed with tasks and with stress and with pressure, for a lot of people, especially in today's world, with the mentality a lot of people have today, is they just crumble.
Yeah.
Or you can be the sort of person. And if you look at any sort of person that's achieved any sort of success in life, and I'm not talking about monetary here, I'm talking about just success as a human being, right, in whatever their endeavor was. You will notice that they got there in spite of having the worst of adversities, because only through the worst of adversity can we really plug into the best of what we can be and who we can be. You're not going to simulate that. You're not going to simulate that for no reason. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like you openly admit that, look, I've struggled with my weight my whole life pretty much. And I don't think that I would have ever took control of my life the way that I have, making the changes that I have, right? If it wasn't for this condition, because this condition has driven me back so far that I got my back against the wall. The only way for me to move is forward and come out fighting, right? And that's why I'm so impressed with you. I will tell you straight. I'm going to get some pictures up so people can see what we're talking about here. But I will tell you straight that and I'm telling you this as a coach, whenever I'm going through any sort of difficulty or any sort of pain, I genuinely, with the first person that pops up into my head is you. Because I think, you know what? Joe sets the example every day. So I tell myself to shut up and not worry about my pains. That's the absolute truth. Like, people don't realize it's not just a before and after picture. Having you checking in every week, going through the hardship that you've gone through, doing the things you've done has been incredible. I mean, if you take people where you were in this sort of beginning picture with me and where you've kind of come to, which has been an absolutely insane journey, because now people understand that your greatest difficulty isn't making time for the fucking gym or, sticking to your diet. Your greatest adversity is you, right?
Yeah.
Literally every day, your body's falling to pieces, right? Giving you issues, giving you pains, giving you disturbance, right? And you're having to navigate through all of that, right? And plus, we have like a whole host of other issues that you suffer with digestively that are all part and parcel of everything you're going through. So, I mean, when you first joined up, where were you there? I mean, and
So
what was the goal?
I think I think I have to put a little bit of credit over to Christina for
Yeah,
finding you. I trained as a PT. Me and Christina did our training together, and when I did my training, she was fit. I thought she looked amazing. And then once we'd finished our training, I continued to follow her on Instagram, and she was being coached by you, and just over the months watching her transformation and what she was doing, and I had spoken to other coaches about it, and
yeah,
I got quite negative because I'm vegan as well and I'm celiac, and one coach told me that being celiac was in my head. um,
wow,
and when you explain it's not just it's the MS, it's the liver disease, um, it's the GERS disease, so it's digesting, it's the MS, it's the fatigue, it's the list of sort of symptoms is endless. A lot of them shied away from it. So I think if I remember, I think I sent you a couple of messages first just to not test the water, but sort of see, and then explained about my symptoms and my conditions. And I think the thing for me was at no point did you say, no, actually, can't deal with you, way too much. And watching what Christina had done, I needed to lose a little bit more weight, but I'd been the sort of normal route that most of us go through. That I've done Slim and World, I've done all of that malarkey, and I needed, because my brain capacity with the MS can be quite low. I needed somebody that was going to structure me and tell me what to do, because I can
yeah,
follow that, but as a PT, I know what I'm supposed to do and I can do it and I can get clients to do it. But I needed somebody I don't know how to explain. I needed somebody to tell me, this is what you've got to do. This is how we do it. These are your exercises. And it was literally what I needed. I was quite happy. I just did as I was told, basically, as much as I could with the MS. But it's been such a learning process. You know, even training as a PT, there's so much I've learned from Game Seekers and from the journey and from this that I'd never have got. But I didn't really have, if I'm honest, when I signed up, I thought I'd sign up for 20 weeks and I'd probably have like quit, to be fair, after a few weeks, because I thought I just don't know if I can do it. And then we got past 10 weeks, and then I thought, no, I'll do 20 weeks and I'll stop. And then I thought, then I signed up for another 20 weeks, and yeah, we're 2.5 years down the line. And it's just that it's the support, it's the structure. And I don't, with the support, I don't just mean the diet, the exercise, the nutrition. It's the mental support, the spiritual support, and from you, from your brothers, and from Game Seekers. It, you know, it's I've got that focus where I wanted to just lose weight before, and then obviously at the start I was still competing at Disabled Strong Women, but I was finding it with the children and where I live, we haven't got an actual strongman gym, so I'd always have to travel, which then became a lot more awkward. And I think we spoke after I competed at Arnold's, I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't put my body, like competing at Arnold's took me nearly 3 weeks to recover, if I'm honest, because I was just so fatigued. And as a mum, that has a knock-on effect, you know, for my kids. So I went through a bit of a dodgy stage where I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then when we sort of spoke about it, and just, you know, the bodybuilding has just side of it just seems to have fitted in perfectly. And I'm not even sure where we're going to go with that now, which is what I like. It, you know, we've got so many aspects of where my body is now, but that excitement that in 3 months it's going to look different again, and then in another 3 months it's going to look different, and then in 6 months after that it's going to look different again. But at the same time, I'll be that further on with the MS, and I'm getting older, and I'm fitter and look healthier now than when I did when I was in my 20s. In my 20s, I was the heaviest at 23 stone, which is the biggest I've ever been. So yeah, it's exciting to see where we're going to keep going to, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I couldn't agree more. I just love to like just really hear it, really, to be honest with you. And it's so interesting because you know what it is when you reached out to me, absolutely. You know, I remember you telling me that other, you know, coaches have shied away. And I think what it is that a lot of coaches tend to employ this method where it's a case of send your diet plan, send your training plan, just get on with it. They don't really truly want to tailor things, right? They don't truly want to get involved with a client. But I do get where they're coming from, because they're just saying if you follow this, then you'll get results, right? And then if they're being open and saying that, look, you know, well, we can't work with you, sort of thing. But for me, I'm actually a really big believer in human beings. This is my first and foremost thing before being a coach. So I'm never going to tell anyone that they can't achieve anything. But then I'll never lie. I'll never say to somebody that it's not going to be hard work. It's not going to be a challenge. It's not going to require you to basically design a new lifestyle and mindset. And then the second thing is that I'm so glad the way that our journey kind of organically grew and grew and grew, because you talk about a learning experience from your side, and people don't realize, they might think that you're a PT and you coach people and you help people. Like, why not do that yourself? I tell people all the time that when it comes to yourself, right, it's really easy when you don't have a support network and you don't have anyone that can truly give you input. It's really easy to not see the reality in a mirror, and then you don't know what calls to make with diet, training, or, you know, cardio or supplementation or anything like that. The whole point of having a coach is first and foremost to kind of like outsource your stress, your worry, because you said, okay, I want to achieve this goal. I want to lose body fat. I want to get into better shape, right? I'm going to outsource the stress and strategy of that to someone who can do it, right? And I'm going to focus on just getting that work done. And that's always the best sort of relationship when it comes to coaching client. But also in terms of the actual way that we've worked and our relationship has grown, I've learned so much. Like your journey has educated me, right? Really, because like I say, that when I work with people, you have to realize what Joe said is absolutely right. For me, the training, the diet, and the cardio is important, of course, it's what's getting results. But it's really just the icing on the cake. I like to develop an actual relationship, right? Where I can understand. I've never understood how can you get the best out of somebody if you don't really know what they're going through and who they are as a person, right? So for me, it's actually the conversations that we have. And, there's not one week where you haven't checked in and you haven't, had to go through literally a tsunami of difficulty in so many different regards. People don't realize how many hospital appointments you go to, how many scans, how many tests you're getting put through continuously. It's not for a few weeks. This is ongoing month after month after month. And you're knackered a lot of the time. You're tired a lot of the time, going through a lot of things in your personal life as well. And you compound all of that. And here you are, right? Getting into better shape, right? Doing things that are incredible, like wheelchair bound. Here you are competing in the Arnolds, right? Looking at doing bodybuilding, seeing your body change, like the shape you've achieved is a complete reversal of any shape you've ever been in. Because it's not just a case of that you've lost body fat, you've actually built yourself a new shape. And I'll show in a minute with a picture, especially the rear shot. You can see how you've restructured your whole body, right? You're in the shape of your life, right? Like you say, you're getting older, right? Where MS has really meant an attack. And I'm not saying that it's any easier for you, but you're going through it, right? And you're thriving. How does it feel? When I say this, I'm sure everyone watching this will agree. I wouldn't say you're a woman getting through MS. I would say you're a fucking ambassador for MS, an ambassador for the truth of what this lifestyle and having the right mindset because you have a no quit mindset. I know more than anyone because you check in with me and it's always real and raw. You don't hold back. Right? Sometimes we're exchanging 10, 12-minute voice notes. And the thing about it is that when I hear, like, you never complain, it's not like, oh, I have to say, I couldn't just, it's like, this is what happened with me this week but this is what I managed to do. This is what and that is the truth of what creates big progress. I mean, how does it feel like you must feel real conviction of where you are in life now,
Yeah, I
right?
do, and it's a tough one for me because over the last few years, because of the way I look, because I don't technically look ill, um,
Mm,
I've had to put up with a lot of people saying that I'm faking it and stuff like that. But
right.
it's when you actually know me and some of the guys, well, there's quite a few of the guys in the gym, they see it. Um, I haven't been tonight, and I've already got messages. They're checking in to make sure I'm okay. But I can't train like everybody else, um, and it's that I like to post. If I my body halfway through a step will decide that it is done, and I can drop a bar, I can drop, which is why I sometimes have to adapt my workouts and use the Smith's machine instead of squatting with a barbell. Because literally, if my leg decides to give out, there's no
Yeah.
warning, it will go. And I had an incident about 6 or 7 months ago where I had 60 kilo squat and my body gave up and I went over with it. I have no control over when my fatigue kicks in for when you get, like when I was competing in strongman, the stress of that knocked my fatigue before I'd even done anything. But where other people's bodies, you can sort of push through that tiredness
Yeah.
and get that last rep out, even if it's not the best rep, but you can just about get it. My body doesn't allow that. When my body says enough is enough, it stops working, whether it's my legs, my arms, my legs and my arms. So for me to be able to do this with the MS, we've got a wider community now of people that are working out with MS, and everything I post is, if it helps one more person with MS realize that, you I thought my diagnosis was the end of my life, and it very nearly took it. But there are lights at the end of the tunnel, but it's hard work and it's tough, to 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 do a exercise. I think one of the women I follow, she explained it like the tiredest a normal human being gets, so yourself, my children, people in the gym, is a tiredness that you can go to bed, have a
Yeah.
good night's rest, and wake up feeling refreshed. You know, you take a day off the gym, you feel refreshed. For me, my tiredness is neurologically based. So I'm neurologically tired. So I could sleep for a month and I'd still wake up just as knackered as I went to sleep. So it's trying to get that awareness about the MS, but also for other people that have got MS and chronic, not just MS, ME, chronic fatigue, all those sort of conditions that are quite similar, is that there are ways around working out with your MS, but it's very, very specific to every person. All my symptoms and everything from my bowels, my bladder, I don't have on my left foot, I've got only my big toe that works. The signals to the rest of my foot doesn't work. I can't feel hot and cold the same on my skin as other people do. But all of my symptoms that I deal with, you won't find another MS person that has exactly the same. They may pick and they may have a few, but we're so individual, and that's what's, I think, with my sort of journey with MS, is that we are individual, but there are ways around it. And for me, finding you as my coach has meant that I am able to, you know, I've got my set routine of my exercises, but I can adapt it when I have
Yeah.
to. If, you know, if I have to use a Smith's machine instead of, I'll find a way. If I can't do that exercise, I will find a way in the gym with bands or whatever to try and get the same effect. And that's what I want other people with MS to sort of to realize, that they, you know, they can do it, but it's, you have to find somebody that really understands the MS and takes the time. You know, I've had other PTs locally that would push me and push me and push me to complete fatigue, which was fine, but the knock-on effect, my body going to absolute fatigue, potentially is really dangerous for me.
Yeah.
So I have to find my balance, and I found my balance, and it's what I want other people to realize, that once you find that balance, you can work out, you can, you know, there's other people with MS that are bodybuilding, that are doing strongman, that are running in the Olympics, you know, doing that. But you've got to be individual with your care and your training, because we are so individual, which is why trying to find a cure and trying to work out how to sort MS out is so difficult, because we're all quite random.
Absolutely, 100%. It's, like I say, it's still a condition that people live with, that really we're only breaking through the surface of really understanding it. And I think the biggest sort of understanding has actually just come from people like yourself, like really more than even medical intervention in a way. Because what I think is that it's people like yourself that you imagine, if you had access or had seen people like yourself, the person you are today, when you were younger, it'd have given you a whole different outlook.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? It would have given you a whole different perspective, because you would have seen a person that is, you know, maybe not being through exactly what you've been through, but understood what it is to live with MS conditions,
Mm.
right? And to be written off by, you know, doctors and all that. And you're actually doing the exact opposite. Like, you've got children, you're fit, you're healthy, you're in great shape, you're training regularly, right? It's not that your life's not without hurdles, because every day is with hurdles. But let's be honest, you like doing everything that you were told you couldn't do.
Yeah, that's because I'm stubborn.
Yeah, it's good to be stubborn in these cases. And in regards to our journey ahead, which I'm going to get a picture up now, I just would love to see your thoughts on this. But with our journey ahead, I'm so excited for the bodybuilding. I really am, because it suits where you're at right now. Like, the strongman stuff is too difficult. Not too difficult as in like you can't do it, but it's like we're working. We've got to work with your condition,
Yeah.
right? Working against the body, yes, you can mentally do it. I have no doubts in you, but do we get a lot out of that? No. Whereas with bodybuilding, we can really focus on what actually suits your body. So working in movements that you can do by isolation and you
Yeah.
can do in a safe, controlled manner, right? And that you're working up through reps and volume to get fatigue rather than all out lifts that put a huge stress on your central nervous system, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is that you're you're in shape. There's in like we don't want to lose another 30 pounds or something like that. That again will put your body just through so much fatigue. We're in a good position body fat wise, and it's just about taking our time to build more shape, to explore where you can take this. That's all of the excitement. Because like I say to you, that get this picture up, I will, and people can see exactly what I'm talking about here, right? That in spite of everything you've dealt with, that you're developing shape like this. I get it up. God, where is it? Here it is. And when you look at that, I mean, how does this picture even make you bloody feel? When you look back at where
Uh,
you were to where you are now, like this shape, it looks like two different human beings.
it does, because it's obviously I know it's me because the tattoos are virtually the same, but it's strange to think that, and in all the diets that I've done before, I've got photos of when I did those, and I never got into the sort of shape that I'm in now. But it's a confidence thing as well. I've always been quite, when I've been overweight before and lost weight, I've always been quite conscious of having big thighs. I mean, I rode horses for most of my life up until a few years ago. So I
Yeah,
had big thighs and a big bum, and but it was, as you can see, it was a different big bum, and it was a big sort of difference of size. And now it's like the more we keep sort of plugging away at this, and things keep changing, and it may only be little things, but each week something is changing. And that now, um, from when I took that picture, the first one when I first signed up, of like complete embarrassment and afraid, like didn't like anything, and I'm still not happy, 100% happy with my body, and I still want to keep working on it, but I'm comfortable and a lot more content with my body now. And I think that I needed to make peace with my body and say, right, this is what it is, the excess skin, the amount of weight I've lost, that over time and over the month with the training, and I'm starting to like, I like me, who I am. Um, even looking at it now, it still doesn't sort of doesn't always seem surreal that it's me. I think sometimes in here, in my head, I've got that, I don't want to say it, but that fat person mentality. I still see myself as big, and
yeah,
these pictures sort of, I've said it to you before. Sometimes I've not missed a check-in. I don't think ever. I may have put one in late, but that's because psychologically I was having a bit of a dodgy time. But these pictures, when I look back at all the pictures, that's what keeps me motivated and keeps me wanting to, make more changes. And even if it's the little changes each week, and it's the tweaks, and those little changes each week are then adding up to, like these ones. If you'd have said when I signed up with you that I'd have
yeah.
looked like that after 18 months, I'd have probably told you that you would have been off your rocker. Um, so yeah, it's a weird one looking at it, but it's also, I want those next ones. The, like we said, the next 3 months and the next 6 months and the next, and I want that just to keep changing. I don't just keep plugging away.
Yeah, I absolutely love it, to be honest. And I love that you said that you wouldn't have believed it, because I tell people that all the time. And I think to myself that they probably think I'm making it up, but say to new clients all the time that honestly, if you put your all into this, you'll go further than you can even imagine. Because obviously a lot of people don't have a scope of what they can achieve, but I do, because I've worked with so many people. I have that experience, right? I know how far a person could go. And I always know in the back of my mind that when somebody sets a goal for themselves, I know deep down that if they stick with it and they give it all their effort, they'll go further than they can do. And I completely agree with you. Like I can tell you from the opposite side, it took me a long time to accept my own body, because where you say you've grown up and you almost take on a world through a lens of the person, because we're not who we think we are. We are what we do. right?
Yeah.
This is the thing that something that I think people don't realize is that you think you're this person, but you can change it like that, right? This identity that you're giving yourself. But I used to look at myself through skinny eyes, literally, like because obviously my problem was that I was so skeleton as a young man, even right,
Mm.
that I always wanted to put size on and get bigger, and no matter how much size I put on, I couldn't see myself as big. Just like how you sometimes still have moments looking at yourself and can't believe that's actually your shape. You're still in your head think you're big, but when you start to transition past that, where you are now, where you start to really just think, do you know what? I enjoy this lifestyle. I enjoy working on my body. I enjoy being healthy. I enjoy being fit. I enjoy being strong, right? I enjoy the challenge of it all, mentally and physically, and seeing myself just progress better and better and better. You start to really just embrace everything that you are and everything that you're not, right? And I think that's a beautiful place to be in because, you know, it's when you're not in that position, you really what you're really missing out on is you're really missing out on you. And I think self-love is something that is really not spoke about hugely. Like a lot of people talk about how a person should be in a relationship, right, with your partner or whatever. But people don't really talk about the relationship that you have with yourself and how important that is. And love is actually a lot more than doing, a meditation or doing like reading a book. Love is actually hard work and really being raw and real with yourself, right? And really commandeering your day and really trying to get the most out of this body, this mind, and this time that you have. So I think like really seeing where you've been, what you've going through, because I don't want to say gone through, because you're still going through it every day. MS is not something that kind of fades away, right? It's
Mm.
there every day of your life and can get worse. But seeing what you're going through and where you've come now, it really is just a story of a lifetime. It really is. And I'm just so excited to see how far we can take this. I don't, until the day I stop coaching, I don't plan to stop working with you, right? So I know we're going to have much more adventure left ahead, but I'm just happy for you. And I mean, if we summarize this podcast now, like, first, I'd love to know, like, how you're how you're feeling towards life now, and where your mind is at now, and advice you'd have out there to people who are in a similar position to you, because they might not have MS, they might be struggling with something else that they're finding incredibly difficult. They might be feeling in a dark space where they feel like no one understands, and they want it to end. Right? You've been them, you know more than anyone. Like, what words of advice would you give to them?
Um, I mean, yeah, like you say, everybody's life is always going to be pretty tough for me with DMS, and my sort of life in general is pretty rough at the moment. But the one thing that keeps me going is my workouts, and obviously you've seen a lot. I spend a lot of time. I've had sort of two failed relationships in the last 2 years that have knocked me for six. It takes a lot for me to let somebody into my world, and I'm very honest about all my conditions, my life. But I think with anything that you're going through, for me, the structure of my workouts, my check-in, the availability that when I'm having a shitty day, I can drop you a voice note, and you sort of will put me back together again, physically, mentally, and the gym does that as well. And it's finding that, for me, it's the release. It's when I walk in the gym, I can. It's quite rare for me to walk in the gym and be that pissed off that I think, no, I can't do this. I'm going home. If I
Yeah,
am not having a great day, I probably think most of the guys in the gym know when I'm not too great. But I can honestly say that I don't think I've ever had a workout. I may have had to cut it short a little bit, or do my weights and maybe not do all of my cardio because I'm too tired. But I can't say that I have regretted going in. I
yeah,
may, and that's sort of for me is what keeps me going. It that I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop working out. I don't want to to stop exercising, and I want to continue for as, I hate saying that as well, for as long as I can, because it's like I'm putting an expiration date on myself, and that's the one thing with MS that I'd have never wanted to do. But it's finding that niche where I'm happy, and the workouts become a medication, and the
Absolutely.
endorphins, and it's what I need, and I think a lot of people with MS and even people with chronic conditions are sort of shy, are told by consultants. My consultant to start with was very much like, no, you don't want to do this, no, you don't want to do that, and I said yes I will, and I did. And now, sort of 20 years on, the consultants are sort of, some of them, I'm lucky with mine, the one I've got at the moment, she's quite open-minded about the research that's coming through with exercise is actually really good for MS. And it's because of MS being it's your brain signals, spinal cord. The one thing that I've certainly found is, when I first used to train legs, I used to get, because when the MS hit, my legs will be the first thing to go. I'll be back on walking stick, or I'll be back on crutches. It will be the first thing that goes. And I used to be petrified of training legs because it would always upset them. But it took me a good year, I think, to really work out that the DOMs were actually a good thing for me, because it was a pain. With the MS, I get the spasms and I get the pain and I get all of the altered sensations that come with it. And that I have no control over. When I go to the gym and I have a good leg session or upper body and I get the DOMs, that pain is, I've controlled. I've then changed the way that those neurons are going into my brain, where the MS pain starts to make the negative attachments. When I go to the gym, that's when I get the chance to fight back and replace some of those negatives with the positive neurons, and it's the repetitive. And I think, there's some days I can't go to the gym because my body really does just say no, and I have to listen to it on those days reluctantly. But there's days when I go in that I'm quite tired, and actually reinforcing those positive neurons or whatever actually seems to stop the MS in its tracks. Maybe only for 24 hours, but it just keeps building. And that's what I want other people with MS and chronic conditions, that your body is a lot more powerful, even when it's ill. Excuse me, even when it's ill, there is ways to try and fight what you're given, but you have to find your own way and what works for you. And at the moment, the strongman wasn't, it was for me, I liked it, and competing at Arnold's was great, but the bodybuilding and the way that we're intending to go now seems to work for the MS. It's because we're isolating more muscles, it means that those positive signals are getting into more areas of my body, I think. Than with strongman, it was 3 or 4 reps of really, really heavy, and then the exhaustion, the MS would then sort of complicate it and not know what to do with it. Where now, I don't have that. I can literally, with targeting the muscle groups and the different days, I think I'm giving a bit the MS more of a run for its money now. It's not being able to control me quite as much as it was previously.
Brilliant. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, and that's what's so bloody exciting. Is embracing this journey. It was terrible when we thought you couldn't powerlift, because obviously it's something you really truly enjoy, the powerlifting, the strongman, that sort of stuff. But bodybuilding gives you, like, you can either look at where one door's shut or you can open another door, right? And go through that and see what life's going to hold there. And that is just incredible. And you know what it is, that I'm really invested in your journey as well. As I can't wait to see where your journey goes. I thoroughly enjoy working with you. I think that I think more people like you need to be held up as role models, right? And less people that are so-called role models out there, because you're actually going through a genuine battle. And I know there's tears at times and there's sadness at times, but you do it with a smile on your face, in terms of you put that work in, you're happy. You don't look at it as a chore, you look at it as an opportunity to try and get through this, to try and get better, to try and get stronger. And I tell people that, you know, being strong, being healthy, and being fit is a way of being. It's not a diet plan. It's a way that you live your life, right? It's like almost like a set of rules to push yourself physically, to push yourself mentally, to take on challenge, to take on stress, to take on adversity. What allows you to see who the human being that you really are. So I think just incredible, and I'm so excited for what lays ahead. And I guess just really to wrap it up, any advice that you'd give to anyone who's going through MS, going through a difficult time, right? How powerful these lifestyles really are for turning it around, because it really has turned your life around.
Yeah, I think for me, especially probably the last year, there's been more ups and downs than there has been for a long time in my life.
Yeah,
And I think which I've said to you before, I've sort of realized that a lot of my life I've done stuff purely for other people. And what I'm finding now is that I'm finding out who I am, with
absolutely.
me, and that's quite a weird thing. And I'm sort of quite liking that. So I think it's I think people need to. I know with my illnesses, I know my own body, and the consultants can tell me to do this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, I live with it daily. They don't. They've read it out of a textbook. They've
Yeah,
If they haven't walked in my shoes or tried to be in my life for more than a 15-minute consultation every 3 months, then when they're trying to tell me I should be doing this, should be doing that, it's like, well, actually, no, I'm going to try my own way. And I think people with chronic conditions um, aren't given the opportunity. You get diagnosed, here's the drugs, here's this is this. And a lot of the times, I think it's only because I'm such a stubborn cow and don't like being told what to do that I said no. And it is actually, it's your body, and there are alternatives out there um, to try. And I think that's the main thing. Like, don't put yourself, when you're diagnosed, into a little box. Punch holes in the box and find out what else is out there, and find what works for you. And if it works, do it. And for me, a lot of people don't agree with a lot of the stuff I do, and that was difficult for me, because I was like, okay, I won't do it. But they don't live in my life. They don't live my daily life. If I feel like I want to do it and it works for me, then I'll do it, because it's my life. Um, and obviously, as long as it doesn't interfere or upset my kids, or anything like that, then yeah. So I think it's know yourself, know your own minds, and if that's what you want to do, go for it. Sod everybody else and do what you want to do, and be happy with it.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, what happens when people get these sort of any sort of condition that's going to be detrimental? They almost assume the identity of the side effects that's the
Yeah.
person's been given, right? And it's kind of like then you've given yourself no chance. And a lot of the times when you've got a consultant or a doctor diagnosing you, like they're not really encouraging you to do anything really, right? So it's kind of like you've got to take your life in your own hands. And I'm not saying to not go ahead to appointments and
Oh, no, no,
seek
definitely
medical
not.
advice.
Yeah, but you have
It's
you
just
have you
about,
have to do the appointments, but you have the right to say, actually,
yeah,
no, I don't want to try this drug. I want to try this. And that's where I've been a bit. They wanted me on disease modifying drugs after I had Charlie, and I said no, because I was breastfeeding. And for me, some of the drugs, it was like, well, the drugs will be great. It will prolong it will help with your relapses, but you'll take the drug and then you'll have 2 really shitty days afterwards, because that's the side effects of the drug. And I'm thinking, well, I can have two really, like last week for half term, I had 3 brilliant days with the kids, and then I had 2 shitty days. but that was no medication, but that's what I'd have on medication. So personally, I choose not to do the medicated route at the moment. I just manage those bad days as best I can. And yeah, I think you just you have to know your body and know yourself, and if your brain and your mind says I want to give this a go, then do it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. You know,
you
and I
regret
can't
it
say
more if
enough.
you don't.
So I can't say enough for like how much working out, right, being active, eating right is a medication. Like it's the first and foremost reason that I do it. I don't really care anymore to look a certain way. For me, it's just about I want to ward off having to sit in opposite a doctor for medication for myself for as long as possible, right? And I know that the only way to do that, is to look after my body, right? I know for one thing for sure, and we both know this, that if you weren't training, if you weren't being active, if you weren't watching your diet, fuck me, everything would be 10 times worse.
Yeah, because if I have to have time off the gym, um, if the MS gets really bad, obviously sometimes I have to have, you know, a week or whatever it takes to do. But everybody would be like, well, it must be good. But the pain that I get from not working out,
Yeah.
because I'm so used to doing training legs, training upper body, and that's what my body likes. So when I don't train, I'm actually, although I'm resting as such, but then I get more pain than I'm in when I'm working out. So like people will say, why are you working out when you're in pain? I'm like, because if I don't work out, I'd be actually most of the time in even more pain because my joints and spasms would increase. When I work out, it
I think,
confuses the signals, and they sort of, scatter around my brain a bit more. Um, so yeah, it is a weird one, but yeah, it's working at the moment, and I'm 21 years now with MS, and I'm still here.
no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been an incredible podcast, to be honest with you, and just an incredible story. And no doubt, because what I want to do is I want to make it a regular thing with clients. So hopefully, what we'll do is revisit you towards the end of the year and see where you've gone with your bodybuilding in terms of your shape and everything like that, and just keep it going. You know, we've got 2 days left till check in, so I can't wait to see this weekend's check in. I just want to say that really sitting here listening to your story has been incredibly inspiring, and it's been an absolute pleasure to do this.
Thank you. It's a bit of an anxious one for me because I don't really talk. Well, I post about the MS, but I don't really talk in depth about symptoms and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a weird one, but yeah, I think it's people need to sort of understand multiple sclerosis as it is, but also how difficult it can be, but also how it does have its advantages as well. And I don't mean like a disabled badge and stuff like that, but working out has given me something that I don't think I'd have had a couple of years ago. I think I'd have been, back to being overweight. I'd have been on all the medication. I'd have probably been back on crutches permanently by now. So yeah, we keep
Yeah.
going.
We certainly do. It's just been incredible. So I will leave you to it. Look forward to check in and an
Yeah.
amazing, amazing client cast. Thank you so much, Joe. Take care.